people and donors because they were really upset about that. And he's like,
and that's the base.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we can't win when all of us are like consistently fucking bitching at each other over everybody. I find like the direction for the Democrat Party will be interesting, but one of the things I like fear is that even though we do like people talk about like getting the coalition together, sometimes I wonder if like the coalition is a lot more like significantly more divided than people think.
Yes,
maybe
and that's
people are just
But Chris, it's always been the issue for Democrats. We've always had to like placate to the middle because there aren't as many liberals as there are conservatives in the U.S. Like and I tell my leftist friends, I'm like, look, you can't run on all these like leftist issues and policies because it's like 5 of you.
Yes. Oh my fuck, yes, dude, yes.
I'm like, and half of you won't even vote for her. But where I disagree with like David Plouffe, for example, is when he's like, well, we need to keep winning the moderate vote. My fear is he has this like fixated like idea of what a moderate voter is because, bro, the average American voter is so confusing. Like they will support Bernie Sanders Soviet style like healthcare and then be like, yeah, we need to jail everyone that like
right.
And I'm like, it's very confusing.
It's nuanced. It's new. Well, that's exact. No one. That's like so fucking beautifully said. Like that's exact. That's it. I scream at like leftists all. I was literally saying on Twitch. I constantly feel like in the middle of like, I was like bitching at leftists on my stream, like reacting to a song. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. Like, I always feel like, especially lately, like right in the middle of like two raging sides of the Democrat Party. We're like the moderates are fucking like right now talking about like, oh, we need to like abandon the LGBTQ plus community. I'm just sitting here like, you have no fucking spine. You have no idea what you're talking about. You view the moderate voter and you have no, and then like the leftists are all, there's 5 of you and like, I say that literally all the time. Like, never mind. Like, there's literally 5 of you. Like, just relax.
Yeah.
But no, it's like a really good point, and that's why I think like to your point about like what like I've never thought about it like that. You just like you almost just like gave me a new pathway in my brain about how to think about this because the moderate voter is so much more nuanced and like almost confusing, and so much of it comes down to like the comms of it and like show it like because there's so many people who support like the Bernie side, like they're like, oh, I love Bernie Sanders, but like
he's authentic. He's
exactly. But then they go like left field to something else. It's all just like anti kind of like more authentic, like anti-establishment. It becomes like pure messaging. Like you just got to fucking message that.
And Chris, you've seen a lot of these like red states that have passed like pretty liberal, or I call them like progressive-ish, policies, like raising the minimum wage in Florida, right? And then Missouri had like they passed like enshrined I think abortion rights in their law, and that's Missouri. Like that's been a really deeply conservative like Christian state lately. And it's the framing of those issues I agree with, and it's also just being willing to like kind of throw away. And like I might get some flack for it, but like the woke culture shit, and I don't mean like abandoning the LGBT. No, I'm talking about like going after people because they say something that you might be offended of. Like it's a Joe Rogan thing. When Bernie went on Joe Rogan, they turned on him They turned on him right away. And he held like liberal positions, but it's because he might have said like 1 or 2 things. I'm like, you can disagree with those things, still go on his platform, because at the end of the day, you're trying to reach an audience. You don't have to love the man. You're trying to reach an audience. So I don't know, man.
No, dude, 100%. Dude, that's all beautifully said. Look at W's for Jake in the chat right here. Jake, listen, I followed you. Like, maybe I'll like DM you. We can, like,
I'm gonna follow you back. You know what? I actually just started a couple of friends and I started this like podcast. It's called Brogressive.
Oh, bro,
and if you have time, bro,
I'd love to. Olive, thank you so much. It's really good to see you.
I'll message you about that.
Dude, I'd love to hop on, bro. That sounds sick.
Get this book.
What is it?
It's Wes Moore's book, The Other Wes Moore.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dude, fucking love Wes Moore. I'm like writing him right now for 2020. I'm not gonna cap
I like Wes Moore a lot. That dude's dope. No, I would love to. Yeah, DM me. We can connect on Twitter. Actually, funny story. This is like the worst. This is top tier worst moments of my life. Where like, I'm. This is so bad, Chad. This is really bad. So I posted my first TikTok in like late 2022, like early 2020. I was like starting TikTok in like early 2023, basically. And like, I've always been really passionate about politics, like a raging liberal, blah blah. Hated Trump, blah blah. I was 16, blah blah. But like I was posting these videos to like a private Instagram, and I started posting on TikTok. It kind of went my way, blah, 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 blah. When I got the opportunity to meet Joe Biden in Atlanta, I'm standing there and like I'm waiting to like go back and like take a picture with him. And I'm like obviously like super nervous. I see like people like, people I recognize, blah, blah. The nicest guy, and Chad, people are going to grill me for this. And I realized it afterwards, and I just like, got to give me some flack here, right? I fucked up. This guy, I'm standing in line. No, I don't know anybody. Like, everyone looks super important. I'm just standing there.
You're like a college student who's.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm like, waiting to meet you. I'm the only like young person there. This guy comes up to me. The only guy to like actively come up and care enough to talk to me. This guy comes up to me and he taps me, and I turn around, and this dude is like 6'5", and he goes, "Hey man, what's your name?" I said, "I'm Chris." "What's your name?" He said, "I'm Wes Moore." And I shook his hand and I met him, but I had no idea who he was.
Bro.
Like, no lie, no idea. No idea. And he was like, "Oh, why are you here?" And I like explained. And I knew he was someone I should have known, but so I didn't want to be like, "Oh, why? Like, who are you? What do you do?" Because that would have been a fold. So I was just like, "Oh." And he was like super nice, and then walked away. And I fucking folded like an omelet.
That's so badass, dude. That's actually...
no, but I'm actually it's like top 5 like worst, most embarrassing moments of my life. Like, dude, how did I fold under pressure and not know that was Wes Moore, dude?
That's so fucking. He actually went up to you and talked. That's actually bad.
Yeah,
that's
like,
why I live without him.
That's
why.
why.
Video of him like shotgunning a beer at a Ravens game.
Yeah.
Bro, so bad.
Yes. Like, that's what we need is like this, and it's similar thing. Like, those are like the politicians we have to target. Another one, like, I live in Georgia, so a little bit biased, is like John Ossoff. Like, dude, John Ossoff is like John Ossoff's also like really, really like raw and charismatic. I met John. I happened to be on the same plane as John Ossoff one time, and I like talked to him for a second, whatever. He was nice, but then I got on the plane. And I noticed something peculiar, which is John Ossoff was flying with other people. And all the other people John Ossoff was flying with were like in first class. Like first row, first class. And I looked back, and John Ossoff was sitting in fucking coach helping people with their luggage at like 10 p.m. on a fucking Friday. And I'm like...
He's like hella tall, right?
Yeah, John Ossoff is tall. But I'm like, this guy right here sitting, I'm like, we need you. You actually care about people. What a beautiful guy.
Hey, I like John. Dude, we just did a podcast of like, we did a draft, like a NFL draft for the 2028 candidates. And,
shit, that's sick.
Yeah, I had Wes on there, Andy on there.
Bashir.
No, look, I'm still a big Gretsch fan, man.
And Gretsch, I've heard maybe I have to like call. I would love to like talk on the pod sometime, talk about Wes Moore. That's interesting. I've not heard people mention Wes Moore.
I will mention. I've been on the Wes Moore, the Wes Moore fan base since he started running back in 2022. 2021 he was running, and dude, I saw him on the Daily Show, and he just like gave the best response to like American patriotism. He's like, look, when I was in the military, when I was fighting in Afghanistan, I didn't care if my brothers and sisters to the right or left of me were, Republicans, Democrats. We didn't care about that. We were there to fight for this country. So when someone who wears, the red hat comes up to me and tells me I'm not an American, I look at them and I tell them I fought for this country. I don't have to wear a hat to prove I'm an American. And it was like such a bad.
That's fire. Wow. I actually never seen that clip. That's sick.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit. Someone in chat said hot take, Jake for president. That's a cold take.
Oh, God.
I'll take it right here, Jake for president. What a guy.
Here when I was 3, but we'll see. Politics is funny. I who I was messaging. I don't know if you have Ken Martin. He's running for the DNC chair.
Yeah. I know Ken Martin. Yeah.
He said he'd hop on the podcast. He's like, yeah, sure. He followed me back, and I was like, oh, cool.
Dude,
and he's like, send me
sick.
email. Bro, he hasn't responded to my email.
You might have to double. Excuse me.
I did, bro. I did.
Oh, that's actually good, dude. I'm
gonna send another one though.
Dude. I'll definitely like. DM me. I'd love to like check out this podcast and hop on. Sounds sick, man.
For sure. Okay, Chris, have a great night. I'm about to work on.
I appreciate it so much. Thanks for the talk, bro. Like, seriously.
Dude, for sure. Thank you, dude. We'll talk more. Okay.
Yeah. We'll be in touch, man. All right.
Oh, good luck. Bye.
You too, man. Be safe. Yo, W's Jake in the chat. That dude is fucking. Like I was kind of fucking. I don't know. My brain feels like mush right now. I feel like. I feel really sick, and my brain kind of feels like foggy. So I kind of just like, usually I'm like kind of sharper on the sticks, Someone says something to me and I'm like, I know how to respond to that. And I was just kind of like, things were being said to me and I was like, fuck, my brain is right. But that's sick. See that? Progressives, that's so like, that is literally so up my alley of like what I think that everyone always says, like my boy Josh says this. Josh Martin. You guys definitely know his brother, Isaiah Martin, because Isaiah's been doing a lot of lies. I don't know if that Josh has been doing many lies. Love Josh, though. Fucking Josh and I have spent time together. Like fucking, we were in like Southern California. Josh and I, like went to fucking, I don't even know where we went to grab food, and like we were chatting for a while. And Josh was like, dude, Democrats need like, he's like, Democrats need like, we need frat guy Democrats. He's like, that's what I'm trying to be. I'm like, that's right. It's always a good time. Anyways, all right, we can talk to like actual Trump supporters now. Jesus. By the way, Olive, it's really good to see you. I appreciate you being here. JB, good to see you. I'm good. I'm dying. Help. Help. Oh, you're still here. I love it. How's life? Were you live? I saw you live earlier. How'd it go? Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
Okay. Why'd you vote for Trump?
Well, for multiple reasons. Like, I feel like he had zero new wars during his presidency. Definitely abortion is a big part of mine. I'm very pro-life. I feel
Have we ever talked before?
we talked like a month ago.
Okay.
Like zero new wars and stuff. So I don't really want to talk about that again because we talked about that before.
Okay. So did we talk about you being pro-life?
No, we did not.
Okay. So
Like, I actually add my friend to us to help me to talk about abortion.
what's his name?
I think his name is Jason or something. Jay.
You don't know your friend's name?
No, I don't know his TikTok name, but he's in the queue. He says a J Camp Trump thing. This is him. Yep.
Oh,
Hello. How old
yeah.
are you?
So basically, I had a few points I wanted to make on abortion, and
Okay.
I think your take that abortion, like any point, like it doesn't matter the scenario, a mother should be able to abort her child. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
And
Before we go to that, how do you feel about the maternal mortality rate in the United States being like very high and higher in states that have a complete and total abortion ban?
Well, I just don't see what that has to do with
How does that relate?
abortion.
Yeah, so that relates because like
Look,
in Georgia, half our counties don't have OBGYNs, so a lot of doctors are getting up and they're leaving the state. They don't want to operate here. They don't want to practice here. A lot of women go to the OBGYN as a primary care doctor, right? They're not just like to do things like just basic reproductive care, basic health care. And the reason like in Georgia, we're losing a lot of our OBGYNs is because we have a very strict 6-week abortion ban that is very vague and confusing. The law is hard to understand. You can face felonies if you are perceived to provide an abortion. And so we see doctors having to consult with attorneys to do their jobs because a woman comes in a situation where maybe to save her life, she needs an abortion, and doctors have to wait and consult with attorneys to be able to figure out when they can actually, let's say, perform on this woman. And we see this in so many different states. I mean, Texas, the maternal mortality rate in Texas increased 52% from 2019 to 2022, compared to 11% nationally. And we're talking about a maternal mortality rate that's 5 to 10 times higher than anywhere else in the developed world in these red states. I mean,
Really, it's a shortage of doctors, nurses.
yeah, the doctors don't want to operate in these states.
You don't want to operate in Texas because of abortion, right? Yeah, correct. I do agree with that.
So we need to, so if we reinstate a Roe v. Wade and
Yeah, but that's not the state's problem. It's not an abortion problem. That's
how is that the law's problem?
the doctors.
yeah, because like you understand they vacated the states now because the laws that Republicans are writing to go after doctors are very vague and confusing, and so they don't want to work there.
No, I think
What
it's
laws?
just they're pro-abortion. No, I understand it. They're pro-abortion. They don't.
No,
wanna
it's
work.
not that they're pro. Oh my God, it's not that they're pro. Boy, let me give you an example. Like Amber Thurman in Georgia, when doctors waited 19 hours to perform surgery on a woman who needed a 15-minute operation to save her life. It's like, why do you think they waited 19 hours to do that? It's because they were consulting with
What was the
attorneys to
operation?
figure out a DNC. They were waiting 19 hours. They were waiting all this time because they had to consult with attorneys to figure out if they could do their job.
Yeah, but Like that's
Yeah, but your
all right,
whole
look,
argument is
that's very low.
Why? Let me ask you a question really quick before I like literally have to like explain fucking like the basics of like what's going on with women's
go, dude.
healthcare directly relates to
I
abortion.
haven't explained anything yet.
All right. Can I ask you a question? Before this live, have you ever heard that the maternal mortality rate in the United States ranks 55th according to the CDC? That's the worst in the developed
Yeah.
world. Have you ever heard that stat?
Multiple times. I was talking to my mom actually yesterday. She was saying, like, when she was pregnant, like they had so many, like, doctors, nurses to help, like, to help her, like, with, like, have the baby. And that the reason it's just a shortage. It's a shortage of doctors. And that's the problem. It's not an abortion
Okay,
problem.
there's
That's like
no-
you're bringing this
So then let me ask you a question.
up to.
And I'll let Nurse
I know,
Heather.
there are leading because of the abortion law.
So then let me ask you a question. So if it's a shortage of doctors, why in Texas did the maternal mortality rate increase 56% from 2019 to 2022 compared to 11% nationally? Why is it so much higher in Texas?
well, it seems like that there's
Pro-abortion
doctors,
don't
right?
want to work.
Yeah,
like,
doctors
like-
don't want to work there. So like, it's not that there's a short. It's not
Yeah,
that
but
there's a shortage. It's not that there's necessarily a shortage of doctors. It's that there's plenty of doctors. They don't want to work in Texas under those conditions.
Because they're
Yeah, but
pro-abortion.
how is that? How is that
Pro-life,
Texas's
so I
fault?
disagree with that.
Texas,
Yeah,
it's
that's
Texas's
doctors'
fault because they have a complete.
No, you're
they-
blaming the state for the doctors' ill decisions.
Yeah, but you understand the doctors, the reason they left is because of the abortion bans that are vague and confusing and hard to operate under. It's too much stress. Why would you be a doctor for 20
What's vague
years?
about it? Explain to me what's vague about it.
Yeah, so like in the Georgia law, for example, with Amber Thurman, where doctors waited 20 hours to perform surgery on a woman to save her life, it was like a 15-minute DNC. They waited because under Georgia law, it is illegal to perform an abortion unless you have a miscarriage. And in this case, Amber Thurman had taken abortion pills in another state, traveled back to Georgia, and there was still fetal matter left over in her uterus, and it caused her to be septic. So she had an infection. So they needed to clear out the fetal matter from her uterine lining. And so under Georgia law, because it's a miscarriage, that would be legal. But it's not a natural miscarriage under Georgia law because she took abortion. Oh, hold on.
She go to,
She took.
sorry.
She took abortion pills, so it's not a natural miscarriage. Furthermore, if the mother's life is at risk, then you can perform surgery. However, if you perform surgery and the mother's life is not at risk, you could face up to 10 years in prison on a felony charge, and you'd lose your license. So under these conditions, conditions, why is a let me hold on, stop. Under these conditions, as a doctor, if a Republican government is watching, you have to essentially go consult with attorneys to figure out when technically her life is at risk. So we've heard multiple stories like this where doctors wait for women to get worse. They literally will send women home and say, you are not sick enough for us to help you. You need to wait to be septic and your organs failing for us to be able to perform surgery.
Can you give me an example?
What's up? Yeah,
give me an example.
Amber Thurman would be a good example. The one we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Because
Did she go to?
Another
Sorry,
reason
did she
they
go to
waited.
Georgia?
Another reason they waited 19 hours. Like again, part of this reasoning is that Amber Thurman was septic, but she was alive. So it's like if they performed the surgery because she needed to have it, was a Republican DA going to slide over indictment and all of a sudden a doctor loses his license and has to go fight for it in a court? Why would you do that as a doctor? Why would you ever work under these circumstances?
Well, I'm just saying you're bringing up like an ultra specific scenario that really doesn't
first of all,
apply.
it's not ultra specific. It happens all the time.
This
Nurse
is why the maternal mortality rate is so
It
high.
happens all the
Thank
time.
you. Nurse Heather, if you would like to chime in.
No, like you hit the nail on the head there. So like the problem is that these laws are basically saying that you have to be on your deathbed basically before you can perform the surgery. So we know that okay, I don't know you guys.
Can we see the exact law about
I'm
what?
a
Yeah,
leader
what's the
of
law? 'Cause this sounds a little weird.
I'm a
Yeah,
labor
no.
and delivery nurse. This is what I do. Okay.
No, I
so-
know, but like I need to see the law. I don't know.
Yeah. So we can
I
do
don't
we can do
understand,
that in a
like,
second.
some
We can do that in a second. Let her speak. And it might sound weird because this is what everyone's complaining about: why the maternal mortality rate is so high and why these abortion bans are causing women to die. So just listen, and then we can explain the law. Go ahead, Nurse.
Yep.
Okay, so we know that if a woman miscarries or terminates her pregnancy or the baby passes away or whatever, the baby has to come out. 100% of the time, it has to come out, or there will be an infection that will be life-threatening. So the problem is that these laws they're intentionally vague, and they make it basically so that the mother's life has to be in danger. So the mother's life is in eventual danger no matter what, but we prefer to do these surgeries before they're seriously ill. Their chances of surviving are 100% almost if we do these surgeries before they get septic. But the laws don't allow us to do that. We have to wait until her life is in danger. And if we wait until she's already septic or even just a serious infection, her survivability drops dramatically, like to like 50%, right? A lot of women will pass away. And it's not like we do these surgeries all the time for lots of reasons. Like we do them after women give birth naturally, right? So like if they don't pass their placenta or something like that, we have to do these surgeries. And there's also other laws that are going on. Like the one, like you want a specific one, I'll give you a specific one. In Louisiana, they changed the class of 2 drugs that are typically called the abortion drugs. One is mifepristone and the other one is misoprostol. So misoprostol, we routinely keep at the bedside of every laboring woman. But because in Louisiana, they changed the class of those drugs to Schedule 5 class drug, they now have to be kept in a locked safe. And so in Louisiana, they have to perform time drills to see how fast they can get to the safe, unlock the safe, get the medications out back to the bedside. Because if a woman bleeds after she delivers her baby, with that medication at the bedside, I can get it into her in 10 seconds. But they can't in Louisiana. So there's lots of like super specific laws. There's also issues around like the trigger laws, right? The ones that were there but suppressed by Roe v. Wade. And then as soon as Roe v. Wade went away, they just automatically came into effect. They've been there since like the 50s, the 60s, and make no sense. People have not voted on these laws. Like I myself, as a care provider in this field, I would not work in these environments. My license would be on the line too. Like for making the decisions that I know I have to make, that's in the best interest of my patients.
Beautifully said. And quickly, again, like I just want to say that all of that relates to the original conversation about why the maternal mortality rate is so much higher in the United States, in these states that have abortion bans, and why there's a lack of access to just basic primary care doctors for women is because doctors don't want to work under these conditions. It's absurd.
All right, so I just wanted to say, like, you hold these mothers' lives in really high regard, which I agree with completely. They're still humans, right? Everyone's equal, but you don't hold babies' lives at all to the same standard. Like, how many babies are aborted a day in Texas? Not in Texas, like worldwide, in America.
I have no idea.
I think it's like around 10,000 just America alone, right?
Yeah. So like there is definitely an issue around like
but you're saying you're trying to compare 55 mortality rates. How many of those even relate to abortion?
God, Jesus Christ. So the maternal mortality rate in Texas is like just over 40 per 100,000. And again, I do want to point out that like Canada's maternal mortality rate is 8 per 100,000.
Yeah. We're at 8.
So like in Texas alone, that's 5 times higher than Canada, who has
also
like
a lot more abortions in Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why the maternal mortality rate is per 100,000.
There's more lives being lost in Canada and Texas.
So that's
A
what?
lot more.
Well, yeah, that's kind of obvious, though. No, if there's going to be more births, there's going to be more.
No, that's not.
like,
That's not
maternal
how
mortality.
per capita works. It's not how per 100,000 works. That's the entire
I'm gonna
point.
say you've got like,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No.
That's
a
the
lot
entire.
more people.
That's the entire point of per 100,000 is so.
You don't think abortions no one's dying, like lives aren't being lost in a baby in the womb.
Okay. First of all, again, we can talk about that. But like,
He's completely undermining the value.
Do you hold on? And again, we can talk about that. But do you find it a problem in this per cat? Again, like the idea of these statistics is that like we can account for the variables in how many abortions there are, how many just individual citizens there are by doing things like assessing per 100,000. So when the United States has a maternal mortality rate, or let's say in Texas specifically, the maternal mortality rate is 40 per 100,000. And we can see that Canada's is 8 per 100,000. And other countries that have, for example, universal health care have much lower maternal mortality rates. Countries with significantly worse just general economic scenarios have much better maternal mortality rates. In the greatest country on earth, women are dying from a lack of basic health care, and we're clearly seeing the relation between abortion bans. It's a little bit absurd.
No, yeah. I definitely agree with you. I feel like there definitely should be work done with this stuff because, like,
right. So we could reinstate Roe v. Wade.
My mom many years ago, when she had a miscarriage, like she had a problem with this. Like I do agree. Like I do think there should be like, and we can agree.
Yeah, I think there's just got to be different laws for different.
And I do want to make it clear that like a lot of the women dying from when we talk about this maternal mortality rate, like most of those women are pregnant and want to be pregnant, but they didn't have access to healthcare before, which makes their outcomes worse. Or again, when we talk about like doctors not wanting to like, hospitals and doctors are at like an increasing risk of being essentially attacked by Republican governments, Republican state governments. Like you could be criminally charged or you could be sued as a hospital if you're doing what seemed to be as performing an abortion. And so like in Florida, Deborah was 22 weeks pregnant with her second child with her husband, super, super happy and excited because that was the goal, and everything was going great until they found out that the child unfortunately was not going to survive the pregnancy. The child had a fatal defect, was not essentially growing correctly. 2 doctors agreed she needed an abortion, but that claim was denied because there was no doctor willing to take that risk at 22 weeks. And so Deborah carried that baby to term in severe pain. It fell into a very severe depression, obviously, understandably, having to carry a baby isn't going to live. I can't even imagine the psychological pain around that. That baby was born and survived 2 hours on the table, struggling to breathe, and died. And so it's like, again, as a doctor, you're watching like these outcomes happen. You're like not able to do your fucking job because the party of small government wants to interfere with the government on healthcare decisions. You would never work in Florida. Fuck that. Go work somewhere else. You don't fucking work 30 years, 20 years of your life, and go through all this school to be a doctor just to have to consult with attorneys and watch women die when you could be helping them. I would not do that. If I was a doctor, I would not do that. Right?
Yeah, I do. Look, I agree with that.
As a healthcare provider, there is nothing more frustrating than having your hands tied by legalities. Like when you are literally watching somebody die in front of you and you can't do anything, like you have the knowledge, the skills, the capacity to do something about it, but you can't because you're being told by lawyers or you're the heads of the hospital or politicians or whoever that you can't. It is absolutely infuriating. And these are the cases where, like, after they're said and done, they live with us forever. I have cases like this that I will never forget, that it's like it should not have gone that way, and it didn't need to, but it did.
Yeah, so what are like the specifics of the law in Texas for abortions?
Texas has a complete and total abortion ban.
Yeah, no abortion.
I know, I'm saying, like, but didn't you say like if the mother's life is endangered?
Correct, but that again, that like part of that is an issue for a variety of reasons. A good example would be Kate Cox, who was pro-life, had a pregnancy that a doctor agreed you need an abortion right now to save your life, and a federal judge agreed and gave her an exemption. But the Texas Attorney General stepped in and said, essentially called out multiple hospitals. I can pull up the letter that was publicly released. Essentially called out multiple hospitals and just said, we're watching. Be very careful what you do. And so none of the hospitals were willing to take that risk from a legality standpoint because the Attorney General stepped in. And so she had to leave the state to save her life.
Yeah, but is that like the law's fault or is that like a miscommunication?
Well, who's writing the law?
Texas, right?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say Republicans. So again, like I think like the Republicans writing the purposely vague and confusing laws who then step in to make sure that those laws, are.
Yeah, but you said if the life is in danger now.
Yes.
So if
Why is the Republican Texas attorney?
issue here?
Well,
There shouldn't
why,
be an issue.
why is the Texas Republican Attorney General stepping in to threaten hospitals?
I don't know. I don't know why.
Well,
he would
I
do
mean,
that.
Ken Paxton's like a mega Trumper, and Trump
I'm not
loves
saying
him.
I agree with the attorney general. All I'm saying is, if the mother's life is in danger, if the doctor comes to the conclusion that her life is going to be in danger, then she can have the service. You're telling me that somehow the law is too vague for that. I don't understand. I think this is just like a. This
Because
is a
the
problem.
doctor has to prove it, and it takes too long. Like in this particular area of healthcare, these women can die in seconds. We don't have the hours, days, however long, to prove these cases. We just don't. And so, like, the reason it's so bad in Texas is because it's a complete and total. So, like, for like any situation, it has to be literally she is going to die in a couple of minutes. And those doctors, when they make the decisions to perform those surgeries, they're doing it knowing that they might face repercussions. Like, I highly commend the healthcare providers that are still providing care in that state at all, because I can't imagine having to try and, like, it's hard enough to make those decisions and do that work in seconds of time, not having to account for whether or not the law is going to come after you for making the right or wrong decision in the moment. So when the doctors are like being proactive by, hey, I'm going to consult the law first to make sure that I'm safe, the women are dying in the meantime.
Right.
All right.
And it's on the doctor to, like, I don't know, in these laws, like, it's purposely vague enough to, like, a woman's life is at risk. Or if a doctor determines that,
purposely big enough, like they're intending to try and like be like, gotcha.
well,
Is that
yeah.
what you're
No, it's purposely vague, probably for the intention that if they feel like they need to go after
Yeah, but even if they were to go after them, right? Like they wouldn't. If they had the evidence, they're like, here.
yeah,
look.
but you're right. Correct.
Yeah, 5 doctors that are saying she would have died.
Correct. But
You
why
can't
is a
deny
doc?
that.
But you're right. That, like, yes.
Yeah, but there should be no fear then. By
So,
the
but then
doctors.
why? But again,
Yeah.
why? But, like, here's the question: is if you're a doctor and you determine a woman's life is at risk, but a Republican DA disagrees and slides over the paper, yeah, you have the evidence. But for now, you have a pending felony charge, and you have to go to court every single day and hire a lawyer and pay the fees. And the hospital itself,
work.
from a legality standpoint, is at risk. Why would you ever do that? If I told
Never-
you tomorrow,
but
hey
that's
man,
never happened though. You're just saying.
if I told you tomorrow, hey man, don't worry, you're getting charged with aiding and abetting a murder, okay? It's going to be like multiple years of court and trial, and you got to find a lawyer, but I swear to God you're innocent. You have the evidence. You probably would just prefer not to go through that, right? That would be pretty fucking stressful, especially if you're a doctor with a license.
I mean, I don't think there would be years of court if you would have multiple eyewitnesses, doctors, and highly credible nurses
I think
saying that her life is in danger. You know.
Okay, then why is it happening?
Could you give me an example of where there's doctors going to courts for this?
I would imagine we'll probably see them soon because they take years.
Okay, so none of them has happened yet, though, right? This is like in your magical what if world.
No.
Nice. Can I ask you a question really quick? Like, just like going back, like, as we have this discussion about, like, that it's like appropriate for the government. Again, part of the other reason to answer your question about why they're written like they are is because they're not written by doctors, right? They're written by people in the state legislature who, like, have no experience. Most of them don't, pretty much all of them, unless they are a doctor, have no experience being a doctor. So they're going to not be well written. So what, but like, in being a conservative and believing in small government, why do you think the government should have a role to play in a healthcare decision? It makes no sense to me.
Well,
All right, well, what if,
definitely has big roles like abortion? Like abortion, I personally believe is murder. So I think
Oh, so again, so like this is
pardon.
where it comes to like being pragmatic. And the idea behind the party of small government used to be that even if you feel like you don't agree with something going on, that the government should still have no role. And in this scenario, a doctor who's, went to med school for, over a decade probably has more of an idea of what to do. And you're just going to live your life and they're going to live theirs.
But
So normally, like, again, I just want to point out quickly, in a pragmatic sense, the government doesn't operate on, I feel like things are murder because, and I don't know why you feel that way. Like, nobody cares. We should operate based on like what works best. And clearly it's been determined by science over and over and over again, that babies, a fetus who at conception, it is appropriate. It is not morally bankrupt to abort that fetus. And furthermore, if we try to put restrictions on it like we're doing, we see catastrophic outcomes. So even if you're upset because it's murder, our society clearly just works better when there is when the federal government takes control and gives a overall mandate for abortion. Because right now in Texas, a woman who is pregnant has a significantly higher risk of dying than in New York. And I think that the federal government has a role to play in something as basic as healthcare to make sure that every state, the odds of surviving, just surviving in general based on healthcare is generally the same.
Yeah.
Odds of surviving. Let me talk real quick.
Wait, Tone, can I go real quick? All right. So basically, say if you're the government, right? And there's a woman, she has her baby, baby's 24 weeks, and she's like, I don't feel like having this child. I don't really have a good reason for it, but I don't want this child any longer. I'm gonna go abort it. Do you think that she should have
happens
a right to do
0% of
that?
the time. 0%.
What do you mean 0%? You don't think a
doesn't
woman ever
happen.
go into the hospital and just be like, I want an abortion because I don't feel like having this child?
At 24 weeks?
Or just like at say like 15 weeks or something.
Okay, 15 weeks.
Just like they don't have a valid reason for why they want the abortion.
I do want to go ahead, Nurse.
Yeah, okay. So 15 weeks, yeah, you're still you're allowed to terminate a pregnancy for maternal choice at 15 weeks. And
Yeah, but how is that justified?
It's because
Because you're preventing a life for no good reason other than I don't want it.
What we have to
It's
do,
selfish.
right, in these situations, when this is the argument, right, we have to define a point in time when that life has value, right? So, like, nobody will say that fetus isn't alive. I would never say that, right? A conceived zygote is alive. It's a human. It's alive, but it's not valuable. And it's even in your constitution.
Why isn't it valuable?
Because we have to pick a point in time where it has value. And
Okay, when does it have value?
Yeah.
When does it have value?
The current scientific consensus, medical consensus, is at the point of like sentience, right? When it's able to have a unique subjective human experience, when we know that it can feel pleasure and pain, when we know that
Yeah, but that's hard to pinpoint.
Bro, can you let her
It's
speak?
not.
Well, there's
It's
people in
not,
the world
no.
who don't feel pain.
Can you let her speak, please?
Yeah, we've been.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
listen, you
this
guys-
is proven, right? And this is why we have Roe v. Wade protected a woman's right to choose to 23 weeks and 6 days exactly, because science and health had proven that after that point, it's that fetus can feel the pain, can have the subjective experience of going through the termination of the pregnancy. So, but before that, it can't. It's not developed. Its brain isn't developed enough. Its nervous system isn't developed enough. It can't experience that. It's not detrimental. It's not going to suffer.
So if you can't feel pain, you can be killed.
Nurse, can I just really quickly, Nurse Hadley, can I ask you a question? Are you personally pro-life?
Okay, yeah. So this is an excellent question. So I am philosophically pro-choice. What that means is I think everybody gets to choose. So Chris already knows the answer to this question. Myself, when I was 15 or 16 years old, my best friend got pregnant and she chose to terminate her pregnancy. And at that point, I sort of evaluated my feelings around this and have held to the personal beliefs for my body that my choice is life. I would never terminate a pregnancy of my own for my choice.
Right.
because
But-
You believe it's wrong?
Yeah. So you believe it's wrong though? No.
I believe it's wrong for me, but I don't think that I have the right to tell other people
Why
what
would you?
to do.
Why is it only wrong for you though?
That's just my choice. Like, I might have feelings about the decisions that other people make about this. But
That's like saying
I don't
that's like
have
saying-
the right
That's
to
like saying
tell them
I
what
believe
to
it's
do.
wrong.
So
All right, just go. Whatever. All right, I can go. All right, so that's like saying I'm not going to kill anybody because that's my choice. But if you want to go kill someone, you're all go for it, dude. You know, like that's what you're basically
no,
saying.
I think what you're learning right
Okay.
now. I think what you're learning right now is like is nuance. That like that Nurse Heather herself might
No,
believe
we're
that
just
life.
arguing if it's,
She might believe that life. Again, this is somebody who works in the healthcare field and knows far more than the three of us. And she's a woman. That she might believe that life starts at conception, and so she would never get an abortion. But she
Life does
supports.
start at conception, by the way.
But she hold on. But she supports women if they understand the risk associated and they understand what they're doing. She supports them being able to do that without the government interfering in that. So now what you're starting to learn is fucking nuance. That like the government, just because you feel a certain way, doesn't mean that the government should have a role to play in that feeling. It's almost like Nurse Heather has an IQ fucking triple both of yours combined. It's fucking annoying.
Well, if you understand that there's an actual life inside the womb, then you understand that it's not just a matter of opinion. It should be a matter of fact if that baby gets delivered or not. And the whole argument we're having is that a life or not? Because if it is a life,
I kind of
you
got
can't just be like, it's okay for you, but not okay for me.
Go ahead, Nurse Heather.
I'm not saying whether it's, I think that it's okay for anybody just because that's the scientific consensus, the consensus of healthcare. It makes the most sense from a legal political standpoint too, like because of things like maternal mortality rates. Like when we try to impose laws that regulate these things, the outcomes are, like Chris said, catastrophic. So it makes far more sense to just allow people to have the information that they need in the moment to make the decisions that are right for them, to have the conversations that they need to have between them and their doctors and maybe the loved ones that they choose to include, and live with the consequences of those decisions, right? So like I have thought in my head over and over again, right? Because I'm in the room when this happens, right? I've seen them. And in my head, I hate it. But the words do not come out of my mouth because it's not my place. I don't get to tell other people what they can and can't do. Like, legally, they're allowed to make that choice. It's not my business what they choose to do. And, like, until there's some sort of science that proves that we have reason to believe that life is valuable at conception, which right now we don't. We say it's valuable at 24 weeks. I
think
would
there's a
actually
problem
argue
there.
against even that. I think that's too late, personally. I've actually been where I worked, we could do, you could be a conscientious objector. And I've done that for somebody on one case. I've done that. So I think that's too late. Personally, I think it should be 20 weeks, but it's not. And I'm not the person to make that law. It's not my business. So it's just sort of like, because viability is 20 weeks. And I think like if it can live outside the mom.
Yeah, but isn't there like babies who are born like prematurely? Aren't like all babies like they kind of develop a little bit differently? Like some babies might feel pain a little bit before others.
Within like a narrow margin, they haven't nailed
Yeah.
down like an exact date. Yeah,
Yeah, I
which
just
is
think
why
there's a
I
problem with
think
the-
24 weeks is too late. Like I said, I think it's
Yeah, I
too
think
late.
there's a problem with the exact date because anytime you try and draw an exact date, you can always be like, all right, well, why wasn't the day before? Like,
Yeah,
No.
but you have to.
and you keep
And it
if
is
you
tough.
keep going back, you're just gonna eventually get to conception if you just keep doing that. Like,
yeah,
why
and you know
wasn't it
what? That might happen one
viable
day.
yesterday, or why wasn't it viable the day before that? Because you're drawing like a 24-hour timeline of where it's viable to kill a baby, but not.
Yeah, it is. It sucks. Like, I'm not going to say that it doesn't suck. The whole thing sucks. Terminating a pregnancy sucks, no matter why and when.
Yeah, I was actually Sorry, Nurse Heather. I really didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
Just really quickly. Number one, that goes to the point I really wanted to make earlier, which is like when we talk about like a woman just walking into a hospital because she doesn't have a good reason to like have a child. Again, like I'm not going to speak on a woman's experience that I could not understand, but abortion, like the decision to do that is not just like not a simple one. Like I think it's a really like not a good. It is a very misogynistic standpoint, in my opinion, to say that like there's just this mass amount of women who walk around and just like because they're women, they just like don't give a fuck. They just get pregnant and just walk around having an abortion. Like it's going to be very like even women who have abortions and are pro-choice. That's like a very difficult decision to make and could be I'm not going to say like I'm not going to put trauma on other people. It could be or it could not be traumatizing. Regardless of all that, I think what we're learning in real time when you say things like it's hard to nail down an exact date and then we just keep going back and back and then it's conception. And Nurse Heather says, yeah, it kind of sucks. That's like the job of government is that it should all kind of suck a little bit, but it should work best for most people, being pragmatic. And so like, yeah, the rules we make in government, it's all line drawing exercises. It all sucks. And everyone's a little bit upset for a variety of reasons. And that's why it works well. Because it
doesn't work best for everyone because more like
it actually, it kind of works best for no one. Again, the perfect government is where everybody's a little bit upset. You know, everyone's going to be a little bit pissed. You're going to say, well, it's 23 weeks in 6 days. Why isn't it 23 weeks in 5 days? And Nurse Heather may have a position that it should be 20 weeks. And I may have a position that, you know, like, hey, when we restrict it way too much, you know, a lot of women are dying because of the nuance around doctors being able to perform without the government intervening. And so all of that becomes, we're all a little bit upset for maybe different reasons, but we determined that it's best for like the outcome of most people in our society if government makes it 23, weeks and 6 days and people make the best decisions for them.
Wait, not at all best at all.
Do you agree that you can't pinpoint a certain point where you're allowed to abort it or not?
What do you mean like at what point in time they develop the capacity?
Do you believe there's a certain point in time where it's okay to kill the baby?
You mean not okay?
Yeah, sorry, not okay.
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yes, there is a point in time, yes.
All right, so what's that exact point?
Well, interestingly enough, I think that like I'm not sure that I have an answer for that exact point. I tend to hold the position that like I have a high trust in the people who go to medical school for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I tend to trust the doctor. So I actually think that it's a reasonable.
You would agree that you can't put a point on it, right?
No, he's saying that he's not in the position to be the one to dictate that point.
So you don't even have an opinion on it?
No, I mean, I do. I think in general, like I started off this conversation, between 22 and 24 weeks, and we start to have a conversation of A, sentience, and B, viability. And I think that's a completely reasonable, line to draw. But I'm saying that, like, I would not be the one to say it should be exactly 23 weeks because science says X, Y, and Z. I tend to defer to doctors and their ability to understand the science because they understand it much better than me. I actually think there's a semi-reasonable argument to be made. I don't think I necessarily support this, but I think it's kind of reasonable that, maybe we just need no restrictions at it's reasonable because maybe some people say we need no restrictions on abortion because if there was no restrictions on abortion, if you want an abortion right now at 25 weeks, it is practically impossible to find a doctor who would even be willing to perform that.
You think there should be no restrictions?
Well, listen.
It is 100% impossible.
It is. Wait.
Whoa,
Listen.
That's actually crazy.
Wait. Let me finish. At 25 weeks, and Nurse Heather is a doctor. Would you say, Nurse Heather, if you were 25 weeks pregnant, how likely is it that you're able to find a doctor who wants to like morally is willing to perform that operation?
Somewhere approximately around 0.0%.
Right. So again, that's some people say if we have no restrictions on abortion, that actually doctors in their moral capability they will essentially set the week mark. That if you want an abortion at 30 weeks, you just won't be able to get it because every doctor is going to say, "Go fuck yourself." That's murder. I'm not going to do it. That again, and that's generally. I'm not sure I support no restrictions, but it generally falls in line with the idea that I think doctors are best suited to make the decision because they know the science. They studied it for a long time.
Like there are very few doctors that are willing to perform terminations to 23 weeks and 6 days. There's not very many of them that will do it.
Yeah, and 99%
I'm
of
just saying,
abortions happen far before then. So
I'm just saying, like, the day they do say, all right, you can't abort this kid, you'd be like, all right, well, if I came at Tuesday night at 11:50 p.m. or like 9:50 p.m., I could have killed this baby. But now all of a sudden,
It's after
2 hours
midnight.
later.
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, like 2 hours later,
Yeah.
oh, like you can't do it.
Yeah.
Like that's absurd.
That's how it works.
That's absurd though, because
23 weeks and 6
basically
days at
what you're-
11:59
no, but
p.m.
basically what the doctor is admitting is that they don't actually have
They don't actually
a
care.
line where they can verify it.
No, that's the best they've got right now.
I think
Yeah, so
I first of all, like every case is obviously going to be like very like nuanced in terms of like, again, as Nurse Heather is saying, like at 23 weeks, it's already going to be like very difficult to find a doctor who's willing to perform that surgery. And like, obviously in a doctor who is willing to perform that surgery, it's probably like, every patient is different. But
it's
what
very case specific.
Right, exactly. It's
Dependent on
exactly.
why.
Exactly. It's incredibly case specific, but like what you're engaging in right now is like a paradox. Like you say, oh, well, at 23 weeks and 6 days, if you did at 23 weeks and 5 days, you're saying it's acceptable. And we say, oh, we don't know. Well, then why is it at 23 weeks and 4 days and 3 days? And then all of a sudden you're back at conception. Like that's paradox.
because
It's purposely
my-
paradoxical.
no, because my whole point is that you can't draw the line when life starts other than conception, or like when it becomes a human life. So it's never okay to abort a baby unless you're coming from the standpoint like I have to save the mother's life or something like that.
So what about the cases? So, when abortion was illegal completely, like the women that did like back alley abortions and stuff, like when your rate of death was significantly higher and you had like no health care at all. So your chances of like dying in childbirth or the baby dying were like astronomically high. Like, is that where you want us to go?
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
Well, one, a lot. I can answer this one. I know, like, there's still a lot less babies being aborted in those states, so more lives are being saved, in my opinion, in Texas.
A lot less reported abortions.
Yeah, I mean, she said less reported abortions.
Right. So that they're not necessarily not happening.
No.
They're just not
No,
happening on the books.
Sorry, are you saying there's underground abortions happening?
Well, yeah, actually, and for the record, I want to make this very clear that this is like what I'm about to say is purely educational and fascinating, and I don't support doing anything that's against the Georgia state law or any state's laws. But I mean, there's a website called Aid Access, for example, that for less than $150, doctors overseas will write you a prescription for the two abortion drugs, mifepristone and I never know how to pronounce the other one.
Misoprostol. Yeah.
Thank you. That the FDA has determined are safe and effective up to X amount of weeks, and they will write you that prescription and send it to you over the mail to any state, and that's where most of abortions are most abortions in Texas right now are happening via things like that. Again, that website is aidaccess.org. I don't support you doing anything that's like against your state laws, but they will work with you financially if you're in like a financial hardship, which I just find again interesting and fascinating, and you shouldn't do it.
We can agree there's a lot less abortions in Texas before it was allowed.
I think it's hard for us to figure that out because
I don't think it's that hard to figure it out.
well, if a woman
pretty
orders,
obvious
if we have some stats to suggest that over 50% of abortions in Texas are happening via abortion pills, and how, like a woman orders abortion pills via mail and then takes them and tells no one, like how are we going to know that happened?
We're not going to know, but it's definitely a lot less
Yeah, it's
abortions happening.
definitely.
Well, that's
definitely a
that's
lot
your
of-
opinion, right? You're making an assumption. That's not based
No,
on
it's
any
because it's illegal. So
You're
of
also
course
making an
it's
assumption
illegal.
that the same amount of babies are being aborted.
No, we're making an assumption that we're making
we're both making
Nurse
assumptions.
Heather and I are saying there is no data to support the conclusion you've come to. I'm not sure we said that.
Yeah, it's just much more likely that there's not as many babies
If
being
something's
aborted.
illegal, then it's going to be a lot like how do I say this? If abortion is illegal, there's going to be a lot less abortions because it's against the law. People it's breaking the law. Like it's going to, of course, be a lot less.
Even if there's loopholes, there's going to be a lot less people who are going to like take those actions rather than if it was legal and easily accessible.
Someone said pro-lifers.
That's more. That's just like a logical conclusion. I don't
It's
understand.
an assumption. I don't know to be true.
It's a more likely assumption.
It's pretty easy to order abortion pills through the mail.
Yeah, I'm saying, but how many people are even aware of that?
Hold on, in Texas.
I don't know. I'm saying I don't.
I
I
don't
don't.
down there, but they're actually like over the counter here.
Really.
You don't even need a prescription here. You can just go pick them up at the pharmacy.
Yeah, with Texas, it's illegal, so it's gonna be harder to do and more risky for them. Probably not gonna be as much cases of it.
Well, regardless, to Nurse Heather's point, let's assume that there's maybe there's less abortions, but are you comfortable with the fact that like women who are in a dire situation are still going to attempt to have an abortion, but not under the care of a medical provider, which could put their lives significantly more at risk if something goes wrong?
No, I definitely care about that, but do you care about how like so many more abortion lives are being taken if abortion is?
Or what about addressing the reasons why women are choosing to either A, get pregnant when they don't want to be pregnant, like either having that happen to them or choosing, to engage in sexual activity that results in pregnancies that they don't want, or B, choosing an abortion because they feel like that's the best decision for them and the baby, right? So like, why aren't we addressing the reasons why women have abortions?
Well, how is the best decision for the baby? I don't think you can't.
Killing me is the best decision. Like,
That's
Come
not true.
I think having like death is the worst option.
Well, I think that I know that a lot of people do make that argument, but I have talked to quite a lot of people who okay. This gets really difficult. Okay. So it is the case that there are people who are angry that they were born. Right? That their lives suck so bad that they wish they had never been born.
Whoa, wait. So are you saying because people aren't happy with their lives and they wish they were dead, like suicidal citizens, that justifies the mother coming to the conclusion that her baby's life is going to suck, so I should kill it?
Well, I think that if you know that your baby is going to end up, say, in the foster care system, and that the foster care system is notoriously terrible for people to grow up in, and my step cousin, or he's not my related cousin, but he grew up in the foster care and like he was adopted and he's happy now. He has a loving family. So well,
yeah, it's hard to come to that conclusion that their life's going to suck because it hasn't happened.
I don't think she's necessarily taking that position. I think she's just explaining something.
It happens, right? So you can't just like
you can't say what their lives are going to be like. You can't assume their life's going to be bad.
Let her speak. Let her speak.
No, I understand what she's saying. You can't say that. You can't assume that life's going to be bad. You can't make that. That's impossible.
Well, would you agree that like if like you're really, really, really financially in a terrible situation and you're assaulted and get pregnant, for example, that like the foster care system, a lot of bad things happen in the foster care system. Like you could live a life of like pure just tragedy.
Yep. But you could also live a life of success.
You could. I'm just saying, do you agree that does happen?
It happens.
That's the
position.
That's a terrible position. You can't determine it's going to have a bad life or not. You can't.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
but you can't
determine.
You cannot determine.
Your life sucks. Pull the plug. That's
but
basically
obviously
what
it's
you're saying.
reasonable to assume that if you're in like an extremely hard financial position and you cannot care for a child and it's just going to maybe be in a foster care system or not eat some nights because you don't have enough money, some people might take the position that it is more moral to end the life of that not yet human being because they will.
Wait, hold up. I got something to say. If you were to walk into I live right next to Philly, right? If you were to go into Philly, go to the worst part of town, take 100 people, point a gun to their head, say, "Do you want me to kill you? Yes or no?" How many people would be like, "Kill me"?
I have no idea.
Not very many. No. So,
but the issue is that you're
like your take is just BS. You're saying that I should be able to determine if his life is going to be bad or not.
You can do that because at the points where women are making these decisions, these decisions are made very early in pregnancy, right? Earlier than 12 weeks. So like these, I know that you believe that the value of an embryo at conception is the same as a newborn baby. I understand that you believe that, but it's not true, right? So like I'm sorry, it's just not true. We can't like there's nothing that supports that because it just doesn't it's not developed enough.
If you were to leave that embryo to its natural processes for 9 months, what would happen?
Pardon?
If you were to let that newly conceived child stay in the mother's womb for 9 months, what would happen?
Okay, can I ask you this question? Do you believe in like natural selection, like survival of the fittest?
Like, do I believe it's like true, like a fact, or like do I believe it's like
Yeah.
okay? Sorry, what are you asking? Are you asking me if I think it's morally okay?
No. I'm asking, do you believe it's true, like that happens?
Oh yeah, it's true, it's true.
Yeah. So like if a pig has a litter of 15 piglets and doesn't take care of the runt and the runt dies, that's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 60+% of conceived embryos don't make it to 4 weeks gestation, right? Survival of the fittest. So like the woman's body actually makes that judgment before the woman even knows that she's pregnant, and will like pass that baby more than 50% of the time. So like our bodies don't value it at conception. So why should we like place laws around valuing it?
That doesn't matter.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that if you have an embryo, it has the potential to be a baby, so you can't just kill it.
Yeah, but
because
So
it has
where do you
potential to live.
stand on IVF?
Sorry, what was that?
Where do you stand on IVF?
I'm not familiar with it.
You don't know what IVF is?
No.
Okay, so IVF, and this is like, okay, so if you're a true pro-lifer, this is going to be a problem for you. So what they do, they give a woman, so if she can't conceive naturally, they try this process to have a baby, right? This is how people have babies, thousands of them every single year. They take a whole pile of hormones, and then they have a whole pile of their eggs retrieved.
Yeah. So you're talking about like outside of the human body, like
Yeah.
creating
So,
a baby.
but do you know what happens though after that?
No.
Okay, so what usually happens is they get like a number of good embryos, right? They actually have a grading system. They grade the embryos, and say they end up with like 6 good embryos. And they're like, great, this is fantastic. We have 6 good embryos. Let's transfer 1 or maybe 2 of these embryos into the mom and hope that she gets pregnant. What do they do with the rest of them?
You tell me.
Yeah, they freeze them. So
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
yeah, so they freeze them. So say one of those embryos takes, and they have a healthy baby, and everything's great, amazing, super happy, right? We have a new family that wanted to exist. 2 years later, they're like, hey, we have 4 frozen embryos. We want another kid. Let's try again. So they transfer maybe 2 more embryos and freeze the last 2. And one of those embryos takes, and they successfully have a second child. Then they
Wait, so
decide
sorry.
that
Is this they're making artificial embryos?
no.
Yeah.
No, they're taking the woman's embryo out of her body.
Yeah, they're doing it outside of the womb.
So they make the embryo in a lab, right?
I'm
They
sorry,
combine
Jesus Christ.
the egg and the sperm in a
Thank you.
lab.
They take the woman's. That's what I meant to say. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind here. Continue, Nurse Heather. Just continue.
Yeah, so they let them grow in a lab to a certain state of development, embryonic development, and then they freeze them.
Yeah.
And then they stay that way, frozen. So when you decide that you're finished using your embryos, you have to choose what to do with the rest of them. Because to keep them frozen in a lab actually costs money. You have to pay rent on these labs. So there's buildings all over the place that are full of thousands of unused frozen embryos. And eventually, most of the time, what these families do, they're like, well, our family's complete. We're not going to use those embryos. They get discarded.
Yeah, but there's a
What
problem.
about-
Like, if you were to leave that embryo in the freezer,
So
what's the potential of life there?
Well, if they don't use it, its potential of life is zero.
So, but what's the potential of life for an embryo when it's in the woman's body?
For IVF, it's like, I don't know. It depends on the grade of embryos. It's not that high, honestly.
Yeah, but there's a potential for life, correct?
Well, there's always a potential for life.
So what Nurse Heather is saying is that if life starts at conception, then you would place a value on these frozen embryos in a lab, just like you would a newborn baby. But this is happening all the time, and so do you? And there a lot of them are being thrown out. So do you support banning IVF? Because
Well, I
IVF
just
is how
think- no, no, I
IVF
think
is
it's really-
how IVF is how thousands and thousands and thousands of women get pregnant every single year because they cannot get pregnant naturally. They're
Well,
unable.
when I say life starts at conception, I'm talking about like in the context when it's like naturally, like a natural conception. not
Wait,
like,
why does life not start if you combine an egg and and sperm?
No, it does
in a-
start.
Because there's
I'll answer your
there's
question.
no
I
potential
do-
for life.
Hold on. I got a question. Where in the woman's body does conception occur?
The fallopian tubes.
Oh, you're the first person I've ever heard answer that correctly. Okay, so why is it that the conceived zygote, single cell organism in the fallopian tube is more valuable than the single celled conceived zygote in a petri dish in a lab?
Because it has potential for life.
Both of them do.
No, I'm saying like
Didn't hear
if you were to leave that conceived embryo in the fallopian tube for 9 months, there's a good chance that that will grow into a baby.
Not
But
if
if you're
it's
to leave
in the
that,
fallopian tube.
if you were to if you were to use the embryo in the freezer, right, and leave that there for 9 months, there's zero chance of
No,
that becoming a baby.
no. It can get used. It can get used in 100 years.
I'm saying there's zero chance of that embryo becoming a baby if it's just going to be left in that freezer like for the rest of time. That's what
I
I'm
know,
basically saying.
but you can't. You would have to make the assumption that you're not going to leave it in the freezer until the end of time. Therefore, IVF should be illegal.
I don't really agree with IVF because I know multiple people who couldn't have they couldn't have a child and they chose to adopt instead because they know that there'll be so much lives that are wasted. And
So this is again like the conundrum you run into logically of like if you support banning IVF, then thousands and thousands and thousands of women who get pregnant via IVF. What you're just telling them?
no. I don't think they should. I'm start like they should start from now on. I don't think they should like end it like in middle. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but like
So okay, no, I understand, but like so now there's just a bunch of women who no longer have the ability to get pregnant at all.
yeah,
They have to adopt.
so much waste of life. There's so much waste of life in it. There's so much waste of life in that. They wait like
I think your boy Jay might take a different position.
no, because they're wasting other human lives.
Jay, is that how you feel?
It's like I'm on the edge. So
This is a good
I-
question, Nurse Heather. Shout out.
I just like I'm kind of in the middle because at the same time, even though yes, they're embryos, they don't have like a potential for life. I'm saying like if you were to put them in the fallopian tube, they would have a potential for life. But if you were to leave it in the freezer, like in its current state, there's no potential for life.
But as Nurse Heather said, like the intention is because they're frozen. The intention is for them to be placed into a woman's body, and so then they I guess always have the potential for life. You could say
Wait, so
that like because they exist and they're frozen. All we have to do is use them.
Wait.
And they will turn into life. So is that not potential for life?
I have an important question. So, was the woman planning to use all those embryos?
So when they do these harvests, they have literally no idea how many they're going to get. They can get
that's why
0,
I
they can
disagree
get
with it.
20.
That's why I
right?
disagree because so much life is being wasted.
Yeah. So this is where people who are like, life at conception, they are usually against IVF because of this, right? Because we have these buildings with thousands and thousands of frozen embryos that are never going to get used. They all potentially could be used, but they're not going to. Did you know that you can actually donate your unused embryos too? like for adoption?
Yeah, you could, but one, this doesn't change the fact that there's so many being wasted. So that's why I disagree with it.
I don't really agree with like just throwing them out altogether.
So okay, so you think so in 2021, 238,000 patients. Oh wait, I'm sorry, hold on.
I'm not saying people who are alive and now who came
Well,
from,
but people would use in the future.
Oh,
So
my.
like, let's see. In the United States, about 2% of babies are born through in vitro fertilization, IVF. In 2021, 97,000 babies were born from IVF or other assisted reproductive technology. So if you ban it, let's say the number, I mean, it is increasing according to some of these stats. So, if you ban it right now, then you're just telling, there's 100,000 in 2021, 100,000 people who are alive. Let's assume for a second, they might not be alive, but just for ease of logic's sake, let's say there's 100,000 people alive right now growing because of IVF. So now you're taking away all of that potential for life. All of that life would have never been born, would have never existed.
yeah, I'm not. Well, I can't go in the past and ban it. So one, they do exist.
Well,
so
but I'm saying we can assume based on these stats that in 2020 next year, let's say 150,000 babies are born via IVF. But if you ban it today, then you're taking away that potential for life.
yeah, I am, but I'm not killing anyone, and there's more death being involved. I mean, like they're waste. I know you don't.
I'm saying he's not like.
I know you don't agree with
taking-
the murder part of it, but it's still they're wasting it, right?
I'm actually smiling because again, in real time, we're discussing why government is difficult, why the goal of government, everything's aligned. Life and law specifically is just a line drawing exercise.
Yeah, let me run another one on you guys. So, what about the contraception methods that don't prevent conception?
Like that
Like the ones to balance hormones?
prevent conception.
No, usually IUDs.
So you're saying conception hasn't happened yet?
No, so an IUD, it works two ways, kind of like a
Does it
fail-safe.
stop conception from happening?
So if they don't stop conception from happening, they do stop pregnancy from happening. So
there is
personal
conception.
story, when I was finished having my kids, I went to my doctor and was like, I don't want to have any more kids. I want, long-term birth control. And my doctors were like, you should get an IUD. But I'm like, I'm not so sure because I know that you can still have conception with an IUD. And so I went to my OB and talked about it. And he's like, yeah, lots of women come to this issue, right? And want to prevent conception 100% of the time. So I had my tubes tied, which prevents conception 100% of the time, right? That was my choice. I chose not to have an IUD because it doesn't always prevent conception. But a lot of women, like insane numbers of women, have IUDs. It's extremely common. And they don't always prevent conception.
So are you saying like, do I agree if contraceptions is okay?
Do you think we should ban
socially
IUDs?
regulate contraceptives?
Well, so just to clarify, they stop conception from happening?
Not always.
No, not always. Sometimes
Conception does occur
And after.
in a good,
So,
a good
yes,
amount of
so,
areas.
yes.
Sometimes, and it's not known always, right?
It's
Correct?
never
Yeah.
known.
Well, then
Never known.
obviously, I
Never
want them banned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I want to point out that
Problematic.
in the United States, it is the second most popular reversible birth control method. About 10% of women aged 15 to 49 use an IUD. So, would you like to ban one of the most common methods of birth control because sometimes it can allow
No,
for
it's a
conception?
tough topic because I believe that if we did ban it, there would be a lot more abortions probably. So that's why it's a tough topic. So
Well, I
I'm
can't
using-
imagine that they would do it,
Yeah,
or that they would ban an IUD before they would have a complete and total abortion ban.
The problem is that conception sometimes happens. So basically, if I believe that conception life begins there, you can't like say that it is, okay, because then I'm contradicting myself. So I have to say it's not okay. So I would agree.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it's not okay.
Okay.
So you want to ban
IUDs.
IUDs?
Yeah.
So do you think that okay, so you shouldn't? So Okay. And like you understand, like IUD again is like one of the most popular forms of birth control. So now like a lot of you're just like taking away access to birth control for women. A lot more children are going to be born when they're not intended to be born. / there's going to be a lot more abortions because women are going to get pregnant.
Well,
because,
I don't think it's like that's the woman's fault. If there's a child, they have a child, right? And they're like, I didn't want this child. I'm like, well, when you went into the bedroom with whoever you went
my
into,
fucking
you're
God.
Okay.
but there's
Hold on.
that risk.
Whoa. Okay, wait a second.
You got to be held accountable
No, let me
to
ask
some
you this
degree.
one. I got a question for you because you guys are guys. I assume het, yes?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Are you straight?
Straight
Yeah.
man? Okay. Do you have a conversation with a partner before you sleep with her about what is going to happen if she gets pregnant?
I'm a virgin. I disagree with sex before marriage.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm Catholic.
Same thing?
Yep.
Great. So that's the action that you can take as a straight male.
Yeah, I
right?
just think it's
Is to
irresponsible.
have control over where you're sticking your dick. So
But why
that's-
would you sleep with a man who you wouldn't want to have? Like, think about it
Because
like
people believe it or not, people engage in sex for pleasure, like most
Yeah.
of a lot of the time.
yeah, but why would you sleep with a man who you wouldn't want to have his baby? Like, if I
Because
don't
you're
trust you-
having sex for pleasure.
Yeah, I do feel like
it's like
you can't stop that. You can't
Oh,
stop
it's so okay. It's so. Do you think that the government should ban all? Do you think government should ban condoms because like people
No,
shouldn't be having
like I
sex
said
unless they want to
before.
get pregnant?
No, like
I'm not saying that. I'm just
Well,
saying that there
wait,
is a
why?
baby.
Why?
No, like I said before, you can't prevent like teenagers. They're always gonna have.
Wait,
sex.
but I'm asking you a question. Do you think it's
I'm
morally
answering it.
wrong? Wait, both of you. Do you think it's
Yeah.
morally wrong to have sex before marriage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's wrong to have sex. Okay.
Yeah.
So just like you morally believe that life starts at conception.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't the
Yeah.
government get rid of all birth control?
Because more abortions would happen. And
why shouldn't the government make sex illegal before
Wait,
marriage?
yeah, right. That's the better question. Thank you, Nurse Ellie. Why shouldn't the government just make sex illegal unless it's to conceive?
I know where you're going with this, and you want me to be like, because I believe it's like I believe my morals shouldn't get in the way of what they want to do, right? And then you're going to go on to the topic of, well, why isn't that the case for abortion?
Well, yeah,
But
I
the
actually
reason why
really wasn't trying to catch you in like necessarily that. I was just I'm genuinely trying to understand. I think that's a contradiction. Like I don't understand where your moral beliefs stop aligning with like the government. I have sex before marriage, so am I like? Do you like your moral beliefs don't align with mine? You think that like at what point do you think the government? You just say, "Oh, Chris is making a decision that will put him in hell," but that's fine. The government shouldn't interfere with. He can do whatever he wants. But
Yeah, well,
if
there's
someone
no life
murders,
ethic.
if someone in your opinion murders a baby, then the government should step in, I guess, to
yeah,
say.
'cause it's way worse. And
Well, yeah, there's a degree to your actions.
So
right?
again, so you're determining that degree.
no,
I mean, would you agree that it's much worse to shoot someone than then sleep with your girlfriend?
in a Catholic sense, yeah.
And just like a logical sense.
No, he doesn't think it's wrong at all.
I don't think it's wrong to sleep with anybody for
Yeah.
pleasure. I think that's very normal.
Yeah. Well, if you're not harming anyone, then is there any like reason
No.
for it to be
The
wrong?
reason why I say this because you got to separate church and state. So that's why I wouldn't ban it. But I don't believe abortion is murder because of my Catholic faith.
But
I believe it because I believe that life could be like life does begin at conception.
But
That's
the-
not. I believe that's true.
I feel like
I believe that too,
I
like
feel
if-
like that goes back to the point of like you have no like data to back like the scientific community would just disagree with you.
No, it doesn't. Life begins at conception. It's been proven.
Valuable life doesn't, though.
We live in a
Yeah, but
society.
life begins at conception, and it's not.
Yeah, but you can't pinpoint
You
the
can't determine
exact.
if a life is valuable or not.
Can I just go back a second, just really quickly? Okay, just because you engage in an action, and Nurse Heather, please feel free to cut me off at any point because I'm just fucking monologuing and like you know more than this, know more than me. But really quickly, if you say that it's a woman's responsibility if she chooses to sleep with a man because you're engaging in a risk. Like we all engage in risk every day. Like I'm gonna get in my car later and drive down the street, and if I stop at a red light and a drunk driver hits me head on, I assume the ambulance will show up and they won't look at me and say, oh, you knew the risk of getting in a vehicle. The most common cause of death in the United States is a vehicle. You didn't do anything wrong, but you knew there'd be drunk drivers on the road. You took the risk, so now you have to deal with the consequence. We're not going to help you. You're going to die right here because your leg is snapped and we're not going to fix it. So good luck. Be on your way, right? So just because you like engage in something that is risky doesn't mean you accept the consequence of that risk. Furthermore, I don't understand again like why it's just like consistently on women to just figure that out. Like as a male, if I go sleep with somebody, like am I responsible for?
Yeah, you definitely have to play a role in that.
We'll both play the role.
You should be a supportive father.
I just want to go back to what we're saying. I don't believe that we should like ban like condoms and stuff because like that I can't use my faith as an argument to ban those things. So I think that's all right for the church. I just think abortion is different because abortion is murder. I believe it's murder, so that's why I think it should be banned.
Okay.
Regardless, so not bring my faith into it.
Okay. Can I ask a question just out of curiosity? I don't really want to go down this line, but I'm like genuinely curious. So I'm like, me myself, I consider myself agnostic, I guess would be like the best description. I don't tend to think about religion very much on my I don't think about religion on my day-to-day basis. So like if I'm engaging in sex before marriage, in your viewpoint, that's a sin. I don't know really much about religion at all. So am I gonna go like is that why is that a bad thing and why is that considered a bad thing in the Catholic faith?
Well, because what we believe basically is like you have to have a commitment under God to each other, and that you're gonna love this woman for the rest of your life, and that act is like kind of secluded to that, marital like context,
Okay.
like you have to be joined under God for that to be a morally permissible.
That's
Okay.
sacred.
Why is sex sacred?
Because it's how life begins.
It's actually very sacred because that's the only way. That's like the way to produce life. Like it's a very.
You shouldn't just like trim it down to this. It feels good. It can be.
Sex is way more than pleasure. Like there's way more to it than pleasure.
That's so sad to me, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. Sex is pretty fun. I don't know. I mean, hey, you should live your life how you want to live. I just find it interesting. I didn't know. I didn't know the answer.
It's one of those things where I think like, what happens?
Things in the way.
Like I'm with Chris on this one. I'm agnostic. So but I have heard this before where people say like, what happens if I go like, what happens if you go like your whole entire life and you don't end up marrying or maybe you pass away before you have the opportunity and you find out that you're wrong about your faith and you've denied yourself like one of the greatest pleasures in the world. Like,
what do you mean you find out that you're wrong?
I'm not denying ourselves. I'm not like I'm saying like after marriage. I'm not denying myself.
But she's saying like, what if you just don't
before
end up
marriage,
getting
right?
What? I want to get married. I'm not saying I'm not going to get married. I'm not.
I know. So for myself, like I became self-reliant.
Are you trying to argue that the Catholic faith is wrong?
No. She's saying that like.
No, she just said that though.
I just think that it's
no.
like.
She asked you a question. Just listen one more time.
To me, it's just, I think it's sad because it's completely like animalistically natural thing to do, right?
All right. Do you think it's an animalistically natural thing to take a baby out of her mother's uterus?
Okay, wait, bro. Hold on. Let her finish.
I'm just saying.
Just
like,
let her finish really quick. She's not trying to argue. She's trying to ask a question. Let her finish.
No, I see what you're saying. You're saying like, why would I like? No, I see what you're saying. Why would I like put my life into the Catholic faith if you don't know for sure? You and Chris haven't experienced Catholic faith like we have at all. So I understand why you would.
Yeah. She's just saying. Yeah, she's just trying to say it's like sad to think that you could be denying yourself like a basic human pleasure.
I don't think I'm.
But if you believe that, you're gonna get.
I'm pretty sure I have 100% chance that my faith I believe that like the Catholic faith is the true faith, and that's from my personal experiences. And you guys haven't had those experiences because you guys aren't Catholic, of course.
Well, okay, hold on, hang on.
Yeah.
I have spent quite a bit of time in the church. So
Which
like
church?
I actually do understand all the argument. Like I get it. I completely understand where that line of reasoning, and I get it in the sense that like I know why people make those choices. I do get it. I understand it. But being from like in the position that I am, I just don't see that. It just doesn't make sense on like this plane, right? Like you're talking about a higher level, right? What happens after you pass away? And
Yep.
like those are the reasonings that you're doing it. So like what happens on this earth while you're alive on this earth? Like are you making the decisions that, because you only live once, right? So is it like, I just find
Where are you
like,
trying to go with this?
when you deny yourself things that are like natural, happy, like pleasurable experiences,
One, we're not
because
denying
you
it.
believe something that may or may not be true. I know that you say it's true, but the reality is it's probably not.
Yeah, statistically very
I
unlikely.
could argue that, but
I mean,
I know.
statistically, it's equally as likely that Jesus like smoked a bunch of shrooms and wrote it down and gave it to some guy, and then it got translated.
No, there's no eyewitness.
no, that's actually not true at all.
There's eyewitness.
Sorry, continue, Nurse. Sorry, Nurse.
No, it's
Their
like,
their eyes.
like you know where I'm going
let her
with this,
finish.
right? Like it's just, to me, I'm just saying it's sad. I think it's sad.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Nurse Heather here. It's yeah, I side.
Like I'm sad for you. I hope that like in the end you're happy with the decisions that you've made in your life. Like that's all that we all hope for, right? For ourselves, for our children, that you've made the right decisions for you, and for the people that they've made, that you love, that they've made the right decisions for them, and that at the end of the day you can look back on your life with satisfaction. And like I think that applies kind of across the board. Like we can take this back to abortion. I mean, I've seen a really amazing illustration of somebody asked if, like the people in the chat, if they were willing to put in how old their babies would have been, the ones that didn't make it for whatever reason, whether it was a spontaneous termination, intentional termination, miscarriage, whatever, right? Whatever the reason, if they didn't make it, how old would they be right now? And the reason that this is really, it's very emblematic because it shows that these babies, like we call them babies, we know their lives. Like when women make these choices, it's not done simply. They know, right? They are humans. See, you see the ages, right? We don't forget these babies ever in our whole lives. No matter how this pregnancy ends, they are remembered, every single one of them.
Wait, are you talking about abortions or something?
I'm including abortions, yes.
So
You don't
you're
forget
saying
it.
like, wait,
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I don't disagree that woman would be upset or just feel like some regret that their baby would have been 14 under the Christmas tree, but they wanted to kill it because they thought it would be best for them. I agree with that, but
You gotta make hard decisions in
know,
life when,
like-
when you only live once. That's what she said.
so like
Yeah, I agree with that. So that's what the important.
yeah, I agree that it's a tough decision, and I mean I don't see where she's going with this, to be honest.
Well, it's
Like,
just
what point
because
she's trying to make.
because when you say that women are murdering babies, right? You decisions. They're not easy decisions to make. And I've had people ask me, do these women know what they're doing? Do they know that they're ending a human life? And the answer is yes, they do.
Wait,
they
you
do
just
know that.
you agree it's a human life?
Pardon?
No, yeah,
You
she
agree
does
that-
all the time. Yeah, she does.
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone, it's scientifically proven that is a human life.